hope you're having a good day. What I got here is one of my sea hibiscus. Late in the fall, the nursery actually put out, they put out sea hibiscus, $10, pickup only. It's always been a species I wasn't all that sure of because of the big leaves, kind of like sea grape. I wouldn't mind trying a sea grape, but the leaves are so big, and to get one of any size, they're pretty expensive. But since they put these up on sale, I decided to go up and get a couple of them. This one, I got this one. It was a little bit smaller, but it had some movement low, so I figured I wouldn't have to worry about trying to chop it. A lot of them were about this tall and just about as big around as this one is, with no movement at all. And so this one has a little crook in the bottom, so at least it's got a little personality. And then the other bigger one I actually took with the plans of both cutting it really low and then also using it for a bunch of cuttings. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at that here real quick. All right, and here is that bigger one. It was April 16th. This was in a 10-inch bulb pan, and I was able to reduce it down, get it in this pot here. The link to that video will be in the description. As soon as I noticed this thing was healing up, I was thinking about trying to get some wire on this. It only has the one branch there, but instead I have started defoliating it. That was what I was doing with it before I repotted it. And in that other video, I did mention that this is a popular Taiwanese bonsai, and what they do is they do constantly defoliate, and they can get the leaves really small the more they defoliate. And then even just since I started defoliating, it started back budding. Even got this is a new bud there. Got this one down here. I'd like to get one around the edge here somewhere. Maybe help heal that wound up a little bit more, but the wound still looks good. All right, and here we are back to this guy. Also, when I took a look at the bigger one, I didn't mention that all the cuttings, I must have tried to get probably 5 or 6 cuttings from that. I did a few on video and a couple not. I haven't got any of them to live yet. There's actually one smaller one, probably about as thick as this branch, kind of out there, just barely clinging to life with like one little green leaf on it. I really have some serious doubts on whether it's going to make it or not. It's funny, ever since I started the YouTube channel, I feel like I've got a little, something's happened to my taking cuttings mojo. I always had like 100% with my portulacarias, like maybe 80% with my microcarpas, and 50% with like everything else. I still have 100% with the portulacarias. I don't think you can go wrong with those. I haven't been trying to take any microcarpas because I have enough of them. Everything else, I just really kind of ran out of luck. I just had another willow leaf that didn't make it, another cutting that didn't make it. But I'm going to prune, wire it, and repot it. You can probably already see that I don't have it in the pot. It's getting invaded by ants pretty bad. I noticed, their potting soil that they use for pre-bonsai is pine bark mix. I noticed sometimes when they're like way past time for a repot, some of my older succulent mixes I used to use a lot of pine bark in. And once they get to a certain point, they do seem to attract the ants. I don't know if it's from the rotting pine. I don't really know. But anyway, it's already out of the pot here. I hosed off the pot, got all the ants off of it, and then I just kind of hosed this a few times. And there's just a few lingering ones in there, and I just figured I had no need to put it back in the pot since it was already like that. The reason why I haven't done anything with this yet is I was waiting for it to bloom. And I go to the nursery and I see there's bloom off and on. And then there's a bunch of these, people keep these as trees in their yard here, and I see them bloom off and on. And it hasn't been quite a year, but they all get at least like 2 flushes a year of blooms, and this one hadn't had any yet. And I just got tired of waiting. I noticed the ants, they're starting to gather around the bottom of the pot. I don't want them spreading to other pots or anything, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a good hard cut back. I usually wouldn't do the hard cut back wire and pot all in the same day, but since I haven't done anything for a while, you can see here that where this does not ramify hardly at all if you leave it alone. The leaves get huge compared to that big one we just looked at. So it should have plenty of energy, and like I already said, I only got $10 invested, so this branch may go, but I'm going to make it, I don't know, they're still good and flexible. Kind of a branch just kind of falls in there inconveniently. I'm going to think about that for a minute. That guy's pointing straight down. And you can cut it right off the leaf and just let it die back. You can cut it off. Doesn't really matter. I left them on here. They'll brown up and die off. And still not sure about that branch. Coming right out of the crotch of that. Everything but up here has some good flex. Here's where they've chopped it at some point. I'll probably take the knob cutters of that here in a minute. A little bit of dieback up there. But that's where they chopped it, and it just kind of came out over this way. Be some extra movement up top. I got the wire on there. As I'm looking here, I'm going to think about this. Something about like that being the preliminary front, where you can see a little movement, but then also using that bend in the trunk there to kind of let it lean towards the viewer a little bit. Something about like that. I decided to keep that middle branch there. I can always cut it off at some other point if I choose. And then I kind of figured if I was going to do that, this one could go ahead and come back away from it a little bit. They're not really coming out exactly the same way now, but when you guys, when you see a picture two-dimensionally, it does look like they are, but they are coming out separately there. These branches up here, flexible enough to get some downward movement in them. I don't think I'm going to be able to get two moves. One's already starting to break a little bit right there. And then this back branch actually has the two. Branches coming off of it. I cut all the growing tips off down here, and I left these on up here, and I did decide to go ahead, this one has the two branches coming off of it. You can even see since they chopped that, they actually chopped it again right there, and I got these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one off, and then kind of use that to get a little bit of movement, and just maybe balance it out a little bit better. I may even, there's a very small branch with a growing tip right behind it. Once this thing recovers, I may actually even cut it all the way back to there and let that recover from that. And then just to address this scar a bit, not really that familiar with these species yet. Almost all I have noticed that the wood actually seems to be about the density or softness of most ficus. I have noticed with jacaranda and all the tropicals with the compound leaves, wood gets really hard on some of those. And that should be enough for now. Just let that heal over a little bit. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead, start repotting it. Got my inexpensive root hook here. It'll be hard to get a whole lot on camera. I'll get what I can. that's pretty much around the root ball one time. I'd like to see what I got so far. Whatever it is attracting the ants, doesn't seem that the tree and or roots are any less healthy. They seem perfectly healthy to me. Top is really rough here. Alright, so I've been roughing it up here for a while, trying to decide just how much further I'm really going to go. And since I'm going to go from nursery, from this nursery mix to a much better mix, I really don't want to go back any further than this, and this would be like a permanent part of the root ball. Right now, I think I'm going to go just a little bit deeper on the bottom here. Never really found a taproot of any sort yet. A couple of bigger ones, but they definitely weren't going straight down or anything. See if we can go just a little bit further here. Take a couple of these surface roots and either get them straighter or eliminate them. The bigger one had that big ball of a surface root. This one really doesn't have too many. It's got this one completely coming out the wrong way, not radially. And then there's there's this one which is kind of doing the same thing, but it's pliable. There's times I can be very unsure what the camera picks up, but the multitude of ants all over it start to get very distracting, and they're climbing up my arms here. I thought there'd be a little more nabari to expose, especially since there was just that intense web of roots there. Really not much to it. I don't know if you could hear it or not. As I was even going through there, it was changing sounds, almost as if it was hitting something that wasn't wood. I don't see any signs of rot or anything like that. I mean, it looks decent other than the ants everywhere. Ordinarily, I'd clean up and then get it in here. I actually had a couple better looking pots for this guy, but I'm getting a little frustrated with the ants. So I'm just going to have to get it in here and get these ants back outside. I'll get some kind of treatment on there. These ants are all over it, really were driving me crazy. But I didn't put it in a nice pot anyhow, it's just a training pot, I can always change it. So treat it with some kind of systemic, get those ants out of there. Once it's out of the pine bark, I mean, since there wasn't, I don't see what they could have been attacking, but they were definitely deep up in the root ball, and even worse the closer you got to the surface, which I've never seen that before. Generally speaking, when I have ants like that, they're either down low or they're coming up here for aphids and stuff, but this tree had no aphids or anything on it. Hope to update you with good news one day.